I'll even do it twice. Well, make my day, pal.
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Where John never wants to follow. Get ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
And it truly is the BJ Show, which stands for B for Brad, J for John. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, unlike school teachers who want to be here every day, Monday through Thursday, or in some districts, Monday through Wednesday. We're here every day. John, except John, his model for school teachers, if you listen to the previous show, John wants to have school one day a week like the Sunday school model, right?
That's plenty, Brad. I mean, why would we expect teachers to work more?
Yeah, they work so hard. Okay, it is time for John Combest's Top 3. Now, let me explain what John does every single day. Never misses a day. Every single day for 22 plus years, he gets up in the morning, puts together this list, and it's a list of all the top stories, sometimes even 40, 50 different stories in the state of Missouri. But we distill it down to the top 3 stories every single day we do this. We bring in the celebrity explainer dude. What's your name again?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And then what he does is...
We're on our way to the number one.
And he starts off with...
In third place...
Name the author of this quote, Brad. Don't be weak and gay.
That's Taylor Swift.
It's actually Mike Kehoe.
Oh, excuse
Just
me.
kidding. That quote is from Secretary of State candidate Valentina Gomez. Now, Brad, I know you're a big fan of Valentina Gomez. Have you seen any of her most recent videos?
Oh, my God. I go to her concerts. She's great.
I'm sorry, Brad. I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
What
was that, Brad?
I said I go to her concerts. She's great.
Yeah, she's fantastic. She's like the new Olivia Rodrigo.
No,
What's happened, Brad, is that and I'm sorry for the audio here. Remember, I am doing the show remotely, Brad.
Really?
But Valentina Gomez posted on Sunday to her Instagram account, and probably some other accounts as well, a video of her going for a run, and she has a training jacket on, to provide a little bit of extra resistance when she's running. And she reminds the camera that it's not the time for America to be weak and gay. And Democrats have responded to this, Brad, and really given her, I think, what she wants. And they've given her a lot of attention. And in fact, one of the lead stories on my website today is a post from The Hill in which various alphabet groups respond to, and by alphabet groups I mean LGBTQIA asterisk plus, etc., respond to Valentina Gomez and say that she should really stop this type of rhetoric and that it's quite offensive.
The interesting thing about that is it amazing how things have changed with the words and stuff like that. Let's go to dictionary.com and look up the word gay. Because once again, back in my day, matter of fact, aren't some of the Christmas carols, don't they mention gay in Christmas carols?
Yeah, don we now our gay apparel.
Right.
Now, I would like Valentina Gomez to weigh in on that because I don't think men should be wearing gay apparel, but she hasn't weighed in on gay apparel yet.
Let's look this up. Gay, we'll just go right here, and the dictionary definition for gay is of relating to, here we go. They don't have, but things have changed, are relating to or being a person who is sexually or romantically attracted to people of their own sex. Older use, having or showing a merry, lively mood, gay music. Even older use, bright or showy, gay ornaments. Obsolete, used especially of women, especially in poetry. Beautiful, lofty, noble, are excellent. Excellent, top-notch. So she's saying be top-notch and excellent. What's wrong with that, right? What?
Who could possibly criticize a candidate for calling for that?
Right.
This was a great day, I think, and a great moment for Valentina Gomez because during certain periods of time, you remember she used a blowtorch or a flamethrower or whatever you want to call it to burn a bunch of banned books, and she got some blowback from that. But then really we haven't heard a whole lot from Valentina Gomez. Remember, she was at the SLU protest. So she's been doing more things to elevate her profile consistently. But this is the first time that I recall that a national publication has has gone out and talked to some of these alphabet groups to get them to lash out at her. And this is exactly what she's seeking is this type of attention. And Brad, in an 8-way primary, there's really no such thing as bad publicity.
I tell you what, John's against this. I want to get her on the show, but John keeps saying, no, we can't have her on the show. I think she would be great. You don't think
she would
so?
be entertaining for sure. Well, I think, Brad, you should start another hour-long show where all you do is talk to Valentina and Mark McCluskey, and you can just manufacture some conflict between the two. And, I don't know, just make up some stories, say that you heard a rumor that Mark McCluskey's posting selfies is a little bit gay. What does Valentina think of it? And you could just manufacture conflict. I would listen to that.
Who do you think I am? Jerry Springer of the radio? Is that what you're saying? Manufacturing
conflict?
conflict?
I would be like the guy that got his nose broken when a chair was thrown, whatever his bouncer's name was.
Oh, hold it. That was Geraldo Rivera. Remember? Don't you remember?
Oh, that's right. That wasn't Springer. Yes. I'm getting my 1990s shock.
Right. That was Geraldo Rivera. Who, by the way, you know what his real name is? Which is sort of interesting. You know what his real name is?
Let's see. Robert Hildebrand. He's your long lost brother.
No, George Rivers is his real name.
Is it really? I didn't know
yes,
that.
I'm pretty sure of that because he just did the old, hey, let's spice it up with that Latino feel or whatever, and we'll call him Geraldo Rivera. And
hey, he still owes me an old bottle of liquor they found in Al Capone's vault, and he never gave it to me.
They found nothing in Al Capone's vault, but that's a reference that probably goes over the head of most people. But okay, are we done talking about?
We are done with number one, but Secretary of State race does play into our number 2 story, Brad.
Well, see, okay, so once again, I'm going to say, John, thumbs up or thumbs down on me getting in contact with Valentina to get her on the show.
Absolutely thumbs down. Yep, we're not going to have a parade of 8 candidates reading their talking points on our show.
Well, we had Mary Elizabeth on. She did well.
She didn't talk about her run for Secretary of State, did she?
Well, we tried to talk about that, and she deferred.
And she knew better than that. And, Mary Elizabeth knows a lot of things. And, in fact, Brad, that's a good lead into number 2. Is Casey around?
He's right here.
Up a notch to number 2.
A long-running filibuster in the Missouri Senate ended yesterday, Brad. And, in fact, this was happening when I was on Scott's show, This Week in Missouri Times midweek update. And Scott was able to give some updates live on the show of what was happening with the filibuster. And as it turns out, we talked before, Brad, about the initiative petition process and the idea that instead of something going on the Constitution with a simple majority of votes, it would require a majority of votes in 5 out of 8 congressional districts, making it a little bit harder for something to get into the Missouri Constitution. And after a long-running Democrat debate, which, by the way, set a new record for filibuster, Bill Eigel and his friends set a filibuster record. The Democrats broke that record with their filibuster. Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman, withdrew the motion. And what this means is the bill now can go to a conference committee between the House and the Senate to work out an agreement. And the controversial thing about this, Brad, and why this garnered so much attention yesterday is because if this bill is to pass, and this will go to the voters, if the idea of voters voting on changes to the process, Senator Coleman's point is that the only way that we as Republicans can get this on the ballot is by taking it to the House and Senate committee and then bringing it back to the Senate. In other words, this was not going to pass through the Senate without going through this motion. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do, exactly. And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, the session ends tomorrow, 6 p.m.? Isn't that what it is?
That's correct, yeah.
And so if this doesn't get voted on, it's dead again. Which, John, can I look into Brad's crystal ball here?
Please do.
Brad's crystal ball is telling me, first off, it says, what the hell did you go in the radio business for? Okay, that's a mistake I made a long time ago. No, it's saying it's not going to pass again. It's not going to pass. That's what Brad's crystal ball says.
Senator, sorry to interrupt, Brad, but Senator Coleman's point was that Democrats clearly were not going to stand down. So they were going to run the clock out until the end of session. Now, the reason why, and to be clear, this also garnered some very vociferous and angry opposition from some senators, including Senator Rick Bratton from the western part of the state, who we're at a point now, Brad, where where any sort of compromise is viewed as capitulation. So on Senator Coleman's part, she posted to social media last night, the only way to get this done is to compromise, for lack of a better term, and take it to the House and Senate committee, try to bring it back to the Senate and try to get Senate votes on it. And when you're between a rock and a hard place, I think Senator Coleman's point was that this is the only way that this ends up on the ballot. And folks who've been opposing Senator Coleman on this, and you could put them in the Freedom Caucus category, say that this was some sort of capitulation to the Democrats.
Well, isn't this sort of like one of my favorite analogies, trying to put toothpaste back in the tube, that the toothpaste is already out, that there's no way in hell this is going to pass. And here we go again with another supermajority in the House and the Senate for the Republicans that can't get stuff done. Isn't that what's going to happen here?
Well, I don't know exactly if it's the same as putting toothpaste back in the tube, but look, the whole thing is, how hard should it be for folks to put abortion on the ballot, to undo Missouri's abortion laws? And I think that's why Democrats are celebrating today, is because, we've talked before too, and we probably don't need to belabor it in the top three, Brad, but the idea of ballot candy, what's called ballot candy, and the original version of this, and what was being protested by the Democrats through their filibuster, was the idea that other stuff would be in this initiative petition vote. Like, should non-citizens, can we ensure that non-citizens don't vote? Can we help restrict foreign money in initiative petitions? So it becomes very technical and arcane as you think about what these processes in the Senate. But we'll see today if the House and Senate committee comes back with something that the Democrats don't filibuster from today through the end of session. And again, it's just a matter of running out the clock now, Brad.
Yep. Okay, and finally,
the number one.
Boy, strange bedfellows, Brad. Cori Bush supporting a Josh Hawley and Eric Schmitt bill. Yes, we're talking about radioactive compensation. Cori Bush is urging members of her caucus, and in fact, all members of the House, to support what is the Senate bill that would provide a little bit of restitution to victims of radiation. This is something that you and I have talked about extensively as it relates to Coldwater Creek, Weldon Springs, and this piece is the top link on my website today from the Hill. She circulated a letter calling on all House members to support this legislation. Again, the legislation, which is the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, is sponsored in the Senate by Hawley and Schmitt. So a little bit of, once again, rare bipartisanship as it relates to this, as it relates to anything in Congress these days, but for the radioactive victims.
And we're talking about something that started back in 1942, the Manhattan Project, which ultimately led to the nuclear bomb that was dropped in Japan not once but twice, and St. Louis's contribution where they were refining uranium, and a lot of the tailings and various stuff that didn't go into the bomb, so to speak, ended up on the north end of the airport, ultimately then out in Weldon Spring, and then a bunch of different places up in Hazelwood, and ultimately infiltrated the Coldwater Creek. And I rail about this all the time, because how embarrassing is it that we have a problem that the federal government created. Now, obviously, the situation was different. We were in World War II back in 1942. I get what was going on there. But in other words, it's to the point where, like, if the government decided they were going to, let's say they're going to build a new bridge across the Missouri River, and yet they were going to leave the old bridge there and just say, we don't care what happens. It could just fall into the river. And, somebody in their little, Chris Craft could be driving on the Missouri River, and part of the bridge could fall and kill them. We don't care because we got the new bridge. That's essentially what they've done. They walk away from their responsibility. And once again, you and I both being North County boys, we both know people who lived, their backyards was Coldwater Creek. We know people who swam in Coldwater Creek. And unfortunately, we know people who have gotten very weird, strange, bizarre cases of cancer, which are like 1 in a million, and there's 10 people within a square mile that have that same case of cancer. Get what I'm saying, John?
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. And so we'll see. Apparently, Speaker Mike Johnson has not indicated when or if the bill will be brought to the House floor. President Biden has indicated that he will sign the bill. Remember, for months now, Josh Hawley has been saying that he would be a problem. He, being Hawley, would be a problem for anything going through the Senate. He's kept his word, and he's been fairly obstinate about a bunch of number of other issues as a way to bring more attention to this. So that gambit might indeed pay off.
You know, what we need to do here is we need to have MTG come forward and say, I'm very passionate about this, and I know that Cori Bush, if she would get behind me on this, that they would go arm in arm, walk into Johnson's office and say, look at us, we are polar opposites, but yet we are united in the front to get this taken care of. Don't you think that would help, John?
No, I think it's a terrible idea because Valentina Gomez would then film a video about Cori Bush and MTG and say, don't be weak and gay.
Okay, that's the top three. John, I have some first off, I tell you what, I don't know if I want to do this short break a little shorter than normal and address this on the second break. Let's do that. We'll talk about John's appearance on Scott Fawn's program yesterday, which is sort of interesting.
Fantastic.
Okay, because it was sent to me by not one, not two, but three people. They sent me the link to the recording of. Does he stream that live and then put it on recording?
Yeah, it's live. Yeah, and I had the live link up yesterday.
Okay. Let me just say this. There was a time when I get up early in the morning, as Marc Cox in 97.1 goes on the air at 5 o'clock. So he's on the air 2 hours before we go on the air. And I would text him things, and sometimes I would have information because, you know, I do a lot of research and do a lot of reading and stuff like that. And he would mention things, and I would send him stuff like, hey, Mark, here's a link to this story, blah, 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 blah. He would always comment. Well, apparently he's not my buddy anymore because he never responds. So this morning he's going off on, I guess in the 5 o'clock hour, he's going off on the whole thing with the vetting process. And once again, he is on Mark McCloskey's side. And I'm the guy who's saying this whole vetting crazy thing that even Mark McCloskey's behind, which quite honestly surprised me. He's talking about how, look, how sad is this? We have the supermajority, blah, 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 blah. You know, to a certain extent, a very wise person told me that, you know what the best days of the Missouri legislature are?
Yeah, it's any day they're not in session.
Exactly. Because
once they're out of session, then your pocketbook is safe.
Right, and there's no craziness going on in Jefferson City. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, here's the problem. I mean, and once again, the whole vetting thing to me just creeps me out. And John has even brought up the fact that, okay, let's say, if you don't know what we're talking about the thing that's happened in a couple counties. The big story has been recently where in Vernon County, they got this court ruling where essentially the central committees for the various counties, like the Republican, or specifically the Republican committees, can essentially vet the candidates, potential candidates, before they go on the ballot. In other words, you just don't walk into what's his name, Kurt Barr's office in St. Charles County. This is the way they want it, where you don't just walk into his office and say, I want to run for, alderman and blah, 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 or whatever. Or I'm sorry, that would be a bad example because I believe the aldermanic races are nonpartisan.
Anything that's partisan.
Right, anything that's partisan, Republican to Democrat. And Kurt would have to say, well, I can't put you on the ballot until the Republican Central Committee gives you a thumbs up or thumbs down, which I think is wrong. But the point that you bring out is right now the Republican committees are mainly your hardcore Republicans, and they're against, as I'm going to say the word, give me a number, Tracy, how many times this week?
I think it's only 3, Brad.
Right, I'm really slacking off. Tracy is one of the people who rails against rhinos, and rhinos are Republican in name only. And I've come up with a new one, which I accuse Tracy of being. She's a kino. She's a Christian in name only, that she pretends to be a Christian, but she really isn't, because if she were a Christian, she wouldn't be criticizing people for being rhinos. Does that make any sense?
It does make sense to me.
Because, once again, who's the man who judges us all? He's upstairs. He's not in a studio out in Chesterfield where Tracy's at. He's the judge. And see, that's my whole point. Let the public decide. And once again, perfect example. You got 8 people on the ballot for Secretary of State, okay? In the primary in August. One of those people is going to come out with the most amount of votes. That means the public has spoken. That person is going to go to the general election in November and probably win, because the chances are of Democrat winning a statewide office anymore in the state of Missouri are pretty slim. So once again, the people have spoken, not some dudes on the Republican committee in Vernon County or whatever the heck it is. You know what I'm saying, John?
Yeah, and by the way, we know that you're serious, Brad. This is a table pounder for you.
It is.
When we can hear you pound the table, and this is not sponsored by, Morgan Wallen's furniture moving company,
right,
which should be sponsoring this, because you might break that table, Brad.
Or Carroll House Furniture, where we like nice things, but don't touch my damn dog. That's right. Okay, we have to take a break. And by the way, I am dressed accordingly. This is because I'm going to have a tete-a-tete with your friend this morning. Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?